Art Nouveau was a movement that first surfaced between the years 1890 and 1910. The style was a reaction against academic art and historicism. Those who practiced this style wanted to break down the traditional distinction between fine arts and applied arts. In other words, art for art's sake. Inspired by natural forms such as the meandering curves of plants and flowers, it's easily identifiable by its use of whiplash curves, sinuous line, dynamism, movement, and asymmetry. Art Nouveau was seen across many disciplines including fine art, architecture, and interior design, as well as glassware, jewelry, and furniture. New technologies in printing and publishing allowed Art Nouveau to quickly reach a global audience. Art magazines illustrated with photographs and color lithographs played an essential role in popularizing the new style. The human form, and particularly the female body, has mesmerized artists for centuries. In the 1890s, highly eroticized depictions of the beautiful female form and the erotic nature of many Art Nouveau works are one of the most prevalent features of the painting style. Pushing boundaries, both Gustav Klimt and Alphonse Mucha produced paintings and drawings which were highly centered on eroticism. The daring new female of Art Nouveau was sensual, graceful, and delicate, and a highly sexual modern woman of the day. Poster art remains some of the most well-known work of the era, and some of the most iconic poster art is that of Alphonse Mucha. We'll take a look at his piece, The Dance, from the year 1898. In this piece, we have a single female figure, back arched, head thrown back, standing on the tips of her toes. She gazes confidently, maybe even seductively, at the viewer. The sinuous lines and whiplash curves, so characteristic of Art Nouveau, are curling all around her body, taking the form of various fabrics and hair. More lines drip asymmetrically along the left and right side of the poster. Although she is clothed, the fabrics cling to her body, highlighting every curve of leg, buttock, and breast. The figure, being the dominant focus of the piece, is made even more so by the crescent circling her body and directing our eyes inward. Although the colors aren't terribly saturated, tints of peaches, pinks, and greens in the background make the brighter hues of her skin and dress pop. Throughout the piece, decorative details such as flowers and floating petals, seashells, and butterflies create a cohesive rhythm. The dance was created at the height of Mucha's fame. In its original form, it was created as one of a series of 4 lithograph illustrations called the arts, the other 3 being painting, poetry, and music. The dance is the most sensual of the series and truly celebrates the female form. Her provocative backward glance combined with the revealing garment made for a risque image in 1898. Mucha was a Czech painter, illustrator, and graphic artist who lived in Paris during the Art Nouveau period, best known for his distinctly stylized and decorative theatrical posters. He produced illustrations, advertisements, decorative panels, and designs which became among the best-known images of the period. The fame of his posters led to success in the art world. The posters focused almost entirely on beautiful women in lavish settings, with their hair usually curling in arabesque forms and filling the frame. According to Patrick Bade in his book Mucha, he created girls' tentacle-like hair that looks as though it has a life of its own and might reach out and wrap itself around the neck of any passing male. Mucha was one of many fin de siècle artists who were fascinated by the erotic and threatening aspects of women's hair. The obsession with women's hair reached epidemic proportions in the late 19th century. This can be laid down partly to the fact that respectable women would no more dream of letting their hair down in public than they would of lighting up a cigarette, and most men only saw women's hair unleashed in moments of sexual intimacy. Next, we'll take a look at what is known as Austrian artist Gustav Klimt's greatest work of graphic design, Fishblood. Drawn in 1897, this piece is all about flowing, undulating lines. 3 nude female figures are floating in graceful movement in tandem with the lines. The shape of the bottom left figure cuts across at a diagonal as though she's swimming against the current. Her hair ebbs along with the current. This figure gazes directly at the onlooker, while the other 3 seem to be in oblivious ecstasy among the bubbles and the crests of the water. Without contrast, in the absence of color, and without variation in size, the piece is rather flat. We do get a minor sense of depth through the layering of the bodies in front of one another. Their forms, although simplified, are still curving and feminine. 3 of the women have this dark black hair, which provides the only serious contrast within the piece. And these 3 heads draw our attention from the lower left corner and up through the right corner in an implied line. This flat work was not uncommon for Klimt as his talent as a graphic designer developed. He began to abandon 3-dimensional space and was inspired by the linearity of Greek vase painting and Japanese woodcuts. In fact, many artists during this time were inspired by Japanese woodcuts, a trend that became known as Japanism. The subject matter of erotic female nudes floating through water or space would remain a consuming interest for Klimt. In Klimt's paintings, pattern, textile, and ornament are used to highly erotic effect, emphasizing the nakedness of the body rather than covering it up. Klimt's women are long-haired, slender, lithe, and possess a sexual awareness that is both alluring and direct. Conservative Viennese society was profoundly shocked by these images. Even with their taste for balls, the opera, theater, and music, the Viennese upper classes were extremely conservative. A combination of strict Roman Catholicism and rigid social morals kept them buttoned up on the surface. While people indulged in these sensual pleasures, they were not open to publicly viewing erotic or sexual subjects, a double standard which speaks volumes about fin de siècle morality. Although Klimt never faced legal problems with his erotic art, hundreds of his drawings were impounded in 1912 on grounds that they were pornographic. Klimt ultimately lost the patronage of the emperor and other high-up figures. Fortunately, he easily made up the loss by painting portraits. In Baden Nagoyska's book titled Klimt, they write, "Beautiful, sensuous, and above all erotic, Gustav Klimt's work speaks of a world of opulence and leisure. The subjects he treats contain virtually no reference to external events, but strive rather to create a world where beauty above all else is dominant." Through Mucha and Klimt's illustrations, we can understand that Art Nouveau's flowing lines and sensual female form are a metaphor for the freedom and release from the weight of artistic tradition and critical expectations.